We're back on the other channel, and today we're going to do a little bit of investigating. This here is a $15,000 R35 GTR. And on one hand, it was wrecked at the racetrack, it's had a bunch of parts stripped off of it, and it's just been sitting rotten for the past 5 years. But on the other, it supposedly has a built engine, a built transmission, upgraded turbos, and most importantly, it was a $15,000 R35 GTR. Now we've got a $19,000 receipt for the transmission build, along with a lot of other work they did to the car, so we know what we got back there. But the engine, it's a little questionable. It was allegedly built by a previous owner, but the gentleman we bought it from couldn't verify, didn't have any paperwork or any other info about it. So at this point, we kind of have to consider it just a mystery engine. Regardless, built or not, we're gonna take this thing out of here, and assuming it survived the wreck, we're gonna do our first VR38 swap. Into what? I don't know. We haven't thought that far ahead, but we'll figure that out as we go along. Now, as for the rest of the car, I'm hoping we can salvage a few parts to help us with our budget GTR build, because we just got that thing back from paint. The engine's going back in it, everything is going perfect, except the budget part. But I'm hoping there's some things we can grab from this car that might possibly let us actually hit that budget goal. We're also gonna try to find some stuff to sell so we can make up a bit of that $15,000 we paid for it. And then there's the chassis.
Drift car will be cool.
You do need a drift car, I agree.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, this thing came in, Fernando started talking about like tubed front ends and LS's and Corvette transaxles and all kinds of cool stuff. So I think we're gonna leave the chassis somewhat complete as far as like the body panels that actually survive, some of the interior. This one GTR, even in this state, is just gonna provide a lot of parts for a lot of cool stuff. Now, as for where we should start on this thing, I kind of wanna see if we can get it running, and I don't really see any reason why it shouldn't run. It was taped up, no water or anything else seems to have got in it. I don't know how well it was taped up or when it might have got taped up. Now, the one main mechanical issue this thing suffered when it was crashed is the factory oil cooler got ripped off. It was a giant mess, but the guy I bought it from said he had originally planned to rebuild this thing, so he had already got on with replacing the oil cooler with this sick Mocal aftermarket unit. And I have already put power to this thing, because the first thing I wanted to do when we got it in is check and see if the radio works. If you followed the budget GTR build,
oh, I forget about that.
We've been hunting down a 2009 to 2010 specifically radio unit. The one in our GTR has a typical AV unit failure, and yes, the door handle is one of the parts they stripped off this thing. I was hoping that we'd fire this one up and we'd hear sound coming out of the radio. It's broken too. I was really hoping we could solve that issue with this car, but if everything else works out, I suppose we're in no condition to complain. No oil.
Not good.
We gotta put some oil in this before we start. I'm glad we checked that. So the lower oil pan's not bolted on. That's nice. Yeah, we saw that there was a little damage to this lower oil pan, and the new one came with the car. We'll put it on later once it's out of the car, but I didn't know that it was completely unbolted. And I don't know about you guys, but what this looks like to me is that somebody might have jacked it up from the sway bar and it fell backwards, because that looks awful circular, doesn't it? Okay.
I'm glad you find the right oil for it.
This was from your old Altima,
GTR.
Right? Basically the same key fob, actually.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
Oh! Yeah, that was good. That's not that loud either.
No, no.
Yes.
That sounds good. This thing hasn't started in 5 years, and just like that. That's cool. Now, I shut it off real quick because I want to figure out where the oil pressure gauge is. If I recall from way back when, yeah, there we go. That's what we want to see. Oh, that's fine. That's awesome. I'm not gonna say I didn't have high expectations, because he did say it ran in the past after the wreck. That's something. I think those are transmission cooler lines. The belt's a little noisy. It's actually cut a little bit, I think. But overall, this is, for sitting for 5 years, that's great. I want to gonna try to put the transmission in gear and see if it actually does anything, but this doesn't have any brakes nor an e-brake, so the only way we're gonna be able to do that is on a lift and see if the wheels spin.
It worked! Yeah! There you go! Perfect! 30 hours later.
Time lapse. There we go. Yeah, we're gonna stop running this before our luck runs out. This is nice though.
I like it.
What's it beeping at us for?
All
I don't
right.
know. Built, not built, we'll figure that part out here shortly. But at the very least, we got a running and driving R35 GTR setup. And what the hell did we put this in once we get it out?
Yeah.
We've been talking about doing a VR38 swap for a while, and now we actually have an engine. These things are so expensive, and the wrecked GTRs at auction are so expensive that we haven't bought one and just haven't been able to find an engine, but the cards finally, the stars aligned. I always said the cards aligned. Cards aligned. That doesn't make a lick of sense. The stars aligned. We got one. Well, well, well. You notice one thing I didn't hear on this? The bell housing rattling.
True.
Yeah, we built or bought a built bell housing for the budget GTR. This one didn't rattle. We probably,
at all.
Had we known better, we could have saved some money on the budget and just snatched this one. And overall, it looks like a car that sat for like 5 years would look. There's a lot of cobwebs, a lot of nastiness, I mean, pretty much all over, but there's no real damage. Now, this transmission, yeah, it's just corrosion on it. This Rampage exhaust sounds awesome, and there is not a muffler to be found. You got these little flex joints here. Well, this is the definition of a straight pipe. Now, if these turbos are aftermarket, which they would have to be to make the 950 horsepower this car supposedly made, they're definitely stock housing turbos. A lot of times what people will do to these GTRs is if they're not doing some all-out crazy build that requires a complete aftermarket turbo and manifold and all that, they'll actually mill out the factory exhaust housing, which is part of the exhaust manifold, and they'll put a bigger center section in the stock turbo housing. When you do that, they spool like stock. They still make great power. It's a really nice option. And what's that say? AMS? Yeah, AMS downpipes. Before we get to the whole drivetrain deal, I'm gonna clean this thing out because it came with some goodies, specifically some goodies that are gonna go right onto the body of the car. This is the carbon fiber rear diffuser. How cool does that look?
Nice.
The crazy part about that?
Whoa.
Factory Nissan. This is on every GTR. These though, this is probably the best part about the car, other than the engine and transmission. These wheels that are on here now are just rollers. He put what he had to put on there just so we could get it on the trailer, but it came with these things. Forge lines. These were $7,500 new. They're a little dirty. They've been sitting for a bit, but look at them, man.
The best color. Bronze wheels.
I have to agree. In this situation, they look really good. This wheel is not approved for racing. That's interesting. I'm hoping that one that we found that's already damaged is the damagist. Damaged-ist.
Looking good.
Yeah, this looks great. What's in there?
Yeah.
So you got little marks on this one, but that doesn't even really matter. I'd run that like it is. That one we found originally, this is the bad one, the worst of it. And it's definitely fixable, for sure. That's not even a question. These are 100% going on the budget GTR. And that solves a big problem for us, because I really didn't want to keep the wheels that are on there. We're thinking about painting them and trying to make them work, but they're ugly. Then we certainly didn't have money left in the budget to go out and buy a set, not even a used set, but maybe a damaged set. So we ain't gonna be able to find out much more about this thing until we start digging into it a little bit. So I guess it's about that time, and it feels weird to pull off a donut from a GTR with no brakes or rotor underneath, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Not exactly what you expect from a GTR. The way this all worked out was the guy that we bought it from had originally bought it 5 years ago, planning on rebuilding it. When that kind of got away from him, he started parting some of them out, and he decided the part out thing was not for him and called us up. So here we are. What kind of wheels are these?
CCW? Oh no, I'm sorry, BBS.
There's really no brand markings on these things. They are 18 by 9s plus 35 offset. They're not terrible looking wheels, but we only have 3 of them. So what I think we might actually do with these is just kind of leave them with the chassis once we're done with it. That way, once suspension goes back in it at some point, we've got something set aside to roll it around them, right? We don't have to search for wheels then.
You know what else looks pretty good and decent? No,
I know.
This rack though. I'm glad
It is a nice rack. It's a real nice rack. You know what I paid for this rack?
How much?
70 bucks.
What?
You know why I got it so cheap?
Why?
Temu, baby.
That's
Temu, baby.
No
so,
way.
Temu reached out about doing a little promotion, and it just so happened to be around that time where we're parting that burned C7 Z06. There was stuff everywhere. Figured we'd take a look and see if we could find something to organize the garage a little bit. Then, well, we did. Not just this rack either. They're currently running a $0 gift promotion, so search code KOB5494 in the Temu app, and with a qualifying purchase, you can unlock eligible products for $0. They also have a $100 coupon bundle for everyone. Just search KJM2565 in the app to claim it, and make sure you activate it within 24 hours. Well, that's what happens when you put a non-fitting wheel on with no brake rotor, apparently. Now, we picked up things we'd actually use, like this heavy-duty tire rack here. We got this little plastic roll cart that's supposed to hold up to 800 pounds, and then we got this sawhorse, because Fernando keeps breaking the ones that we have in the shop.
Did you say this is rated 800 pounds?
Yeah.
All right, step in it. Let's prove it. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
See? It holds 230 pure muscle.
230?
Like, no problem.
That's...
Honestly, it's pretty nice stuff, especially the tire rack. I really like this one. It's solid. We're probably gonna order a few more of these. That way, every time we do a teardown, we finally got somewhere nice to put the wheels. And if you can get carts and shop equipment like this that's actually good at a decent price, that just leaves more money to spend on the cars, right?
That makes sense.
Logic checks out. So remember, search code KOB5494 in the Temu app to check out the $0 gift promotion. And don't forget to search code KJM2565 for the $100 coupon bundle. Both codes are on screen, and everything is linked down in the description. I was pointing at the tires, but I mean, like, oh, there's the replacement oil pan he said it came with. It's definitely used, but it's not crushed, so that's good. There's also a box of parts here. You think there's been any water in here or something?
A lot.
Yeah, it seems like this is a fish tank. I would definitely need to hold on to this oil pan for obvious reasons, so we'll sit that to the side. But I think a lot of these parts, like the tag light bracket, even the tail light, some of the bumper brackets, we're just gonna leave that with the car for now. Tempting as it is to just sell as much as we can and try to do the whole thing we usually do with the Strip Club series, or we try to get the engine for free. If we wanna put this back on the road or track at some point, I think it's wiser to just leave a lot of it together, right?
Yeah.
Makes more sense, because you're probably gonna have to end up paying more money and searching for a bunch of parts. A lot of stuff you don't wanna do when you rebuild this thing. So if we just don't lose everything from the jump, we'll probably be in better shape.
Wow.
That's cool.
You need that.
That's not a gecko, that is Godzilla,
You need
right?
that.
It smells like mold. I think that's about it on the cool stuff that came with the car front, except this here. We've got an access port, a Cobb access port tuner. These things are wildly popular. They have been for like 15 plus years. Back in the Subaru days, this was like the go-to. The original one was this huge black box with a little green screen on it. It was a really fun time in car tuning technology. It was great. I figure we can go ahead and start getting this drivetrain out. After all, that's why we bought this thing. This is definitely one of those things that if we didn't already have a nice exhaust on the budget GTR, it would be going straight on there. But on that, we already got that sick homemade titanium exhaust. Really, it's just two nice exhausts, and I guess we'll keep the one that was already with the car and sell this one, try to recoup a few bucks. I think this is a 3.5 inch or 4 into dual 3-inch, and while it's not titanium like the Tomei, it's still really light, primarily, I'm guessing, because there's no mufflers in it. Now, as far as I can tell, Rampage doesn't make, or at least doesn't sell on their website, this exhaust anymore. But GTR exhausts are one of those things that is notoriously expensive. Basically, any reputable brand exhaust is going to run you $2,000 plus, more if it comes with a Y pipe like this. So even with that little bit of tip damage that needs fixed, I'd say this is probably like a $1,500 exhaust. one area where we can definitely make ourselves a little money back are these drive shafts. And on these GTRs, there's two of them. One that goes from the bell housing to the transmission, and then another that comes back from the side of the transmission to the front differential. The small one here is our front diff one, and it also says Brian on it. So you got Brian's shaft, the smaller one, and then you got the main drive shaft, which is a lot bigger. Both these are worth about 400 bucks. The drive shafts in our GTR are perfectly fine. We don't need them, so we can pocket 800 bucks on that. This also seems like a good time to mention that this hood we're writing on, it's perfectly fine. It wasn't on the car during the wreck. The guy we bought it from started buying parts to try to rebuild it. He just gave it to us when we bought the car, so that's another $500.
Wow. That was a lot.
Surprised it still has coin in it, honestly. It's just kind of like one of the low points of the system, so I guess it was holding. So we got the exhaust, the drive shafts, and these little cooler lines that go back to the transmission. And the way they set this up, that's basically all that's connecting the front and rear half of these cars. It's awesome. Gotta get our shifter cable off, which is completely covered in cobwebs. This thing must have been sitting outside for quite some time. And we got those like 3 main harness connectors on this side of the transmission. Break these transmission mounts loose. We'll disconnect the bottom of our struts, and we should be ready to drop this thing down. We should be good. Now, this transmission, far and away, is the most difficult decision we're going to have to make with this whole car. One little wire we forgot there. There we go. So this guy here, this is a Shep Stage 2.5. And unlike the engine, we actually got receipts on this one. Just the base trans build, that was $8,000. It's also got a Dodson 9-plate clutch upgrade for the front wheel drive section of the transmission. All in, this was a $9,500 build. Plus, you have to send them your $5,000 stock trans to do it to. So if we were to sell this thing, it's probably a $9,000 to $10,000 transmission, but I got a GTR down there, and the stock transmissions are notorious for having issues, so it seems dumb to just sell this. But if we were to just take this and throw it in our GTR, it ruins the entire spirit of the whole budget deal. We can't just go throw a $10,000 transmission in there and claim we're building a budget GTR.
Put it on the side. That would be like a saving, you know, just in case.
Insurance.
Insurance, yeah,
Insurance,
I like that, yeah.
That's kind of where I was thinking we'd go with this thing too. We just sit it on a pallet, stash it in the back of the shop, and once we get the other GTR running and on the road, we make sure it doesn't have any issues, and then maybe we sell it. Or maybe we decide we like that other GTR so much it's done, we want to do a little build to it. We want to put bigger turbos on it, and then we're going to need one of these things anyway. Now, as for our rear subframe here, I think we're just going to stick this thing pretty much as it sits right back in the car. That way it has full suspension. It's a little bit easier to get back together in the future. But we are going to take the rear axles, because chances are when this is back on the road, it's probably going to have some stupid transaxle in it. So why not cash in on about 250 bucks now? Now, one other thing we're going to pop off before we throw this rear subframe in here is our gas tank. And usually this wouldn't really be anything of note, but on that same invoice as the transmission, they replaced this fuel tank with a brand new factory OEM one for $2,800 bucks. Not only do I want to get this thing out to see what kind of fuel pump upgrades it has, but if these things are getting old enough where they're starting to fail, it seems like it might be a good idea to hold on to this one in case we have a problem with ours. So one thing they listed on that invoice is a fuel pump hardwire kit, and that's what that is right there. If it's anything like some of the other cars I've messed with, it's a way of bypassing the stock fuel pump control module and making sure your 1 or 2 fuel pumps always have proper voltage. Now, this was a new OEM tank. It was a new OEM tank in February of 2020, so it doesn't look so new anymore, but hey, it's not rotten, it's not rusting, it's not corroding, so I guess that's all that really matters. But I do want to see what is going on in here. We've got this upper piece of the fuel pump assembly, and then if I recall, the bottom piece kind of slides into a groove on the bottom of the tank. And it's definitely E85 in here, but it does smell a little bit off, and it is by far the yellowest E85 I've ever seen. There we go. Oh yeah. So there's a little clip on the bottom of it. You push it up and then it slides on a rail. You see the pump housing bulging there?
Yeah.
That's how you know it's aftermarket. I remember that being like a telltale sign of some of these aftermarket pumps where you can't quite close the bottom housing. There we are, nice and smooth. Let's go open the sucker up. This is definitely something that we need for our build if it doesn't already have it. Remember, our GTR was on ED5, or was equipped for ED5 at least when we got it, so it might already have dual pumps. But if it doesn't, it's the perfect solution. Oh God.
Whoa.
We need some filter work, don't we? Okay, so maybe that's in the cards before we do anything with this. I do have to say, I love the way they tied these pumps to the hangers. I've seen zip ties. I've seen a bunch of like weird clamps. This is nice. These will not come off unless you cut that. That's actually a good job. Guess for now, which I do realize is becoming a trend on this car. We'll take it, we're gonna throw it in the box. We'll just stick it on the shelf until we figure out exactly what we need for our GTR. Now with our actual fuel tank, while it was $2,800 from Nissan, on the secondhand market, they don't really have that much value. One of them sold for $500 on eBay in the past year. It's really one of those things where regardless of what somebody else paid for it, you kind of have to assume it's worth $500 because that's the only other sale out there. So rather than sitting on this thing for a year or more probably to get $500 out of it, I think it probably makes more sense to just throw it back in the car, and that way when Fernando ends up putting whatever he puts in here, at least there's a fuel tank. Maybe it gets used, maybe it doesn't, but hey, worst case, try to sell it then. I figure we go ahead and get the front of this engine just cleaned up a little bit before we pull it off. And luckily, even as we dig into this thing more, I don't really see any damage. That's actually quite funny. The coolant fill neck, the cap for it got bowed. I guess we can get our single good intake off too. It'd be nice to have a pair of these, but one really does us nothing, does it? A single intake on a twin turbo car. Definitely got stock throttle bodies on it, and fun fact, in the newer GTRs, I believe 2012 and up, they actually got rid of the water cooling, or heating in this case, to stop them from freezing in the throttle bodies. So all that is gone. It's actually kind of popular to take these water fittings out and just weld this up as well. Do a little bit of recycling here in its purest form. We need some thick gauge cable and an 80 amp fuse for a power steering setup and a certain 1975 Oldsmobile Delta 88 Royale swap we're doing, so it should save us like $30. One thing that's a little tiny bit of a pain on these is getting the engine harness through the firewall. So I put the ECU on the inside of the car. Very important thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Americans are like, nah, right in the engine bay. That's good enough for me. Cook it, it's fine. We made it strong.
Careful.
Now, best I can tell, the suspension is actually fine, but the front subframe, that is most definitely not. Swayed over pretty heavily along with the frame rails. Gold. Now, before we pull this engine out, there's basically two more little areas we can grab some cash from. Number one is the front axle. Who knows if we're gonna need these, and they're like $300 a pop. Then we got this oil cooler, the Mopar. Not Mopar. Mocal is what I meant to say. See where my brain goes. The Mocal factory replacement. And this would be such a great upgrade for our GTR. But at some point, we have to use a little bit of restraint here. We've got to go to oil cooler on ours. It's a budget project. And if we just take every single part off this car and throw it onto that, it kind of defeats the whole spirit of having a budget build. So I think we sell it. These things are like $500 or $600 if you go to buy one new. And keep in mind, the car's only been started twice with this installed, so it is practically new. I think we can probably get $350, maybe even $400 out of it. And then maybe if it doesn't sell in 6 months, we take it and put it on our GTR. All right, if we did everything right, 50-50 shot, we should be clear.
Oh.
We got
Just need a hammer.
just just on the studs. Man, you really gotta love what Nissan did in making these things easy to pull. There's nothing that's even remotely hard to get to on the back of the engine. There is nothing on the sides except these lines up here and the AC lines and these harnesses there.
Godzilla's out, huh?
Godzilla is indeed out. Now we can get a look at some of the goodies here too. Check that out. That's a Boost Logic cast metal intake. That is a sweet piece. We've also got aftermarket wastegate actuators. And there's nothing, at least yet, that's a dead giveaway that these are aftermarket turbos. But if you drop the engine and do all that, why wouldn't you do turbos? Everything on the back of it, for the most part, outside of maybe that ethanol content sensor up there, that looks stock. Still has the EGR in place. That's kind of common to get rid of when you build these things. Our bell housing, it looks, well, it looks like it has less than 100,000 miles on it. And considering that this thing didn't shatter horribly when we had it running, I'd say that's been replaced or rebuilt.
Inlets, the turbo inlets, are $650 from Boost Logic.
I thought that's what I heard you. That's no joke.
Yeah.
I know this goes against what we've been saying basically this whole time, but I kind of want to use those because the oil cooler, we can swap that anytime. But we've already got our engine out right now. It seems like it would be, how do I put this? Unwise to not put these intakes on there.
You'll have to spend the money.
Because you'd have to drop the engine later to do it. You know, we'll have to crunch some numbers and I guess see if we can make these work. I'm gonna starting to look like about $50 intakes to me. Look at this, the coupler on the end is broken.
Oh my God.
The coupler
There
is,
we go.
I mean, look at these things. They look so bad, don't they? They're so tiny and thin. No girth. I think we need to do it. I think we need those intakes on this one. All right, now we can get a real look at the bottom of this thing. And it really does look like that small lower oil pan, the one we already have a replacement for that came with the car, is the only bit of damage. I was kind of worried once we got it out and got a better look at it, maybe we'd find some damage on this upper oil pan. One other thing that's kind of commonly damaged in wrecks like this are the front differential. These housings aren't all that strong. They're kind of notorious for blowing apart when you're running drag radials or making higher power. Everything there looks fine. I mean, it's old, it's dirty, it's leaky, but it looks like it's all intact. That's a lot of things coming off there. First thing we gotta do here, get these downpipes off, and these just so happen to be the nicest downpipes they make for these things. Also, these studs on the turbo are notorious for breaking. So thankfully, given that somebody's done these before, we didn't have any of them break off. AMS cast mouth downpipe. Now quite clearly these did have a cat in them. Yeah, you can see straight through them now. If they were gutted, they were gutted perfectly because there is no remnants in there. And these downpipes, even the catless version, which these basically are now, even though it looks from the outside like there is a cat, are $1,200. This whole upper section is cast stainless steel, flange included. Same deal with this lower portion down here. I think it goes down from like 3.5 inches to 3 at the flange. It's just such a nice pipe. It's also heavy, and when you compare it to this one, which is the more budget-friendly downpipes we got to replace the blown-out ones on our GTR, there's really no comparison. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with these pipes. They're 3 inches all the way through. You can see instead of a cast piece up top, they kind of made their own little bell mouth. It's a separate flange. We're gonna run these on our car still because we've already paid for them. Why not? Now, I was thinking maybe we'd sell these. You could probably get like $700-800 for them. But we're gonna need a set of downpipes for whatever we put this in. So I think it probably makes more sense, just like we're doing with a lot of things on this car, to just keep it. Check that out right there. You see that exhaust wheel?
I like that.
Yeah, it looks like an exhaust wheel, like a normal exhaust wheel. But when you compare it to this exhaust wheel, it all of a sudden starts looking like a real big exhaust wheel. This is a bone stock factory GTR turbo, and that exhaust wheel is a hair bigger than that internal wastegate actuator there. But you come back over here to the engine we just pulled out of this GTR, if I can get that nut off, and that is quite clearly like double the size of that wastegate actuator. So that tells us what we need to know right there. That's definitely an aftermarket set of turbos. We'll probably be able to tell exactly what they are once we get these intakes off. This little factory intercooler pipe off. They really did a good job making this a compact thing, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
The whole deal just runs right along the side of the engine. This one's actually broken. You see that?
Yeah, not
The
good.
cast ear, which mounted, actually, there's part of it. That's what's left of our mounting ear. Oh, look.
Ooh.
So we will need a new one of these. All right, we'll do a little bell housing analysis here. This is the bell housing out of our GTR. It rattled, it was terrible. A lot of slop in there. Sounds horrible. This is the new one we got for our GTR. And you can see it doesn't have a snap ring at all. It actually has these little pins. There is absolutely no slop here. I mean, true zero slop. And then we have the one that we just pulled out of this car. I hear a slop? Okay. Oh yeah. All right, so this is the original design, but if you look at it, the bearing is a different color on the inside. So I don't know exactly what is going on here. Clearly, both of these ones do rattle a little bit. I think one of these is a newer revision of the stock one. And if I had to pick, it's probably the one that we took out of our car. See how shiny that is? We thought it was new-ish when we took it out because it's beautiful. But it rattled. It was terrible. Now, whatever we put that VR38 in, we're not going to need a bell housing for it, because chances are we'll put a manual transmission right on the back of it, maybe a T56, or maybe something like an 8HP or another auto if we want to go drag racing. So I think what we'll do is sell both of these things as just cores needing to be rebuilt to one of the companies that turns them into this. All this looks very, very new, doesn't it?
Really new.
This does not look like a 100,000-mile back of the engine.
Not at all.
I think we might be on to something here. Not on to something. I think we might have got exactly what we're supposed to get.
Which is rare.
Actually, yes. That is rare this day and age, isn't it? As far as the top of the engine goes, there's really not much we have to deal with up here. There's this E85 kit, which is basically just this. They got this little billet adapter that goes into the factory fuel rail. That's the ethanol content sensor with a slick little bracket there. Based on the style of fittings, the bracket, all the lines, and even this control box, this was made by T1 Race. It's $660 new. This is probably $350, $400 used. And we got our T1R catch cam, which the bracket's broken on it. It's basically worthless. It's more or less trash at this point, right? Not worth anything. $10, something like that, right?
$10.
Yes, something along those lines. So I guess being that it's so worthless, we should put it on our car. We should have to re-weld the bracket and it'll go right on there. And one other thing we got to pull off is our intake manifold. Not that we're going to take it, we're going to leave it with the engine, but you can see down through here, it's got injector connectors on it, which means somebody has replaced the injectors at some point too, which is something you 110% need to do if you're doing ethanol like this. It would help if I disconnected the throttle bodies, huh? Seems like it might be a good idea if you're pulling it off. So it did break clean off the bracket, but we have the entire bracket. We got those pieces on there. No sweat, right?
$20.
You sound like Fernando. That's his go-to over there. Always trying to get $20 for something.
$20, $20.
The injectors, just like pretty much everything else with this engine, are gonna get left with it because I don't want to have to go chasing them down when we decide to put it in something. But they've been sitting in E85 for years, presumably 5 years. It's a miracle the thing still started. Actually, now that we think about it, 5 years in E85 is hard on injectors.
And without any issues though.
Yeah, it just fired up.
Yeah.
That is kind of weird. So what we're gonna do is pop these out, and assuming they are good injectors, we're gonna send them to our friends at Cleveland Injector Hospital, have them cleaned, have them gone through, tested. Oh, that is a delightful smell. Right down in there. What do we have? Ooh, Injector Dynamics 13 hundos.
Ooh. Injector
Injector Dynamics, basically the best injectors you can get, also the most expensive. Yeah, that'll suit whatever we're doing with this engine perfectly fine. On a slightly different note though, it is pretty well filthy under here. In fact, the whole engine, it's really not in nice shape. The whole thing's kind of leaky, kind of just nasty, and that doesn't really come from sitting. This is the kind of stuff that comes from being ran for a long time, not sitting in somebody's yard. And there's a lot here that points toward this being exactly what it's supposed to be, but there's also some question marks, right? Like, if it was built, how long ago was it built? Because the engine doesn't get looking like this overnight. And it's not like they took it apart to build it and didn't clean this stuff. Still had a little coolant in it, apparently. That coolant's still going, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool.
Sorry for the fact that it sounds like a waterfall in here, guys. Okay, you got it? Yep. Are you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Big, shiny. That's big and shiny. Man, I was just playing around. That is big and shiny, isn't it?
Wow.
So there is absolutely zero doubt that these are aftermarket turbos at this point. But the question is, what are they and how much power are they good for? And unfortunately, I'm not sure that we're going to get an answer for that. So the way these stock GTR turbos are set up is the exhaust housing of the turbo is part of the exhaust manifold. When they upgrade these things in the stock manifold, they'll mill out that section right there. They'll do the same with the compressor housing and just fit a bigger center section in there. And it's 100% what they've done here. But again, there's no tags, there's no information, there's nothing. And I do suspect it's going to be the exact same over here. It's a little dirty inside, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the one that wasn't taped up, didn't have an intake on it. That could have certainly benefited from being covered in some way, shape, or form. Now, I guess if there ever has been a good time to not know exactly what turbo setup you have, it's probably on a stock housing GTR setup. I'm gonna eyeball the inducer wheel size as best we can. And it's 53, 54 millimeters, something like that. But what I'm getting at with this is there's a small range of what can be done with these stock housing turbos. Probably something between like 700 to 800 and maybe up to 1,000, maybe a hair over. So at least we know about where it's gonna sit. If we had to guess, if we have to put a name on it, I'm going with the SIR ones. One, because it's got their wastegate on it, which they do sell those wastegates separately, so that's not a guarantee. But they also do make a set with a 54 millimeter compressor wheel, which checks out with this. And apparently, this is news to me, but they make 58 millimeter compressor wheel versions that are capable of 1,300 horsepower in the stock housing, which is so wildly impressive. I mean, that is 100% just guessing. I say that with no real confidence. But the guy we bought it from said it made 950 horsepower, so those numbers kind of line up. Oh, that is oily. It's very oily. Just the threads, though. Smells like bad E85. It's a weird smell to place, because burned bad E85 smells, I don't even know how to describe it. I hope you've never smelled it. Now, the funny thing is, I don't know offhand what stock pistons look like in these.
Carbony.
Yeah, that doesn't much help. It doesn't look like super fresh by any means, does it?
Mm-mm. That's fine. Can we go back, go more into the chamber?
I wonder. It didn't smoke, right?
No.
But I wonder if they oiled these cylinders because he knew it was going to be sitting for so long.
That would have been smart.
Should ask him. Like, if he did, thank you. That's great. That would explain
a lot.
Quite a few things here. Yeah, but I would expect it to have smoked more if that was the case. So with the pistons, and of course that's just me hitting it with the borescope there. They're so carbony that you can't really tell from here. Though, I bet if we look and see if the stock pistons have those valve release right there, that might let us know something.
This is eBay.
Yeah.
Stock pistons.
So that's definitely not a stock piston then.
No.
You see that circle in the middle there? That like huge relief? That doesn't have that.
Nope.
I wonder who designed this engine. Like, if actually Nissan developed it? Or?
The GTR division of Nissan.
Godzilla, probably. The Takumi, right? I
right?
believe,
I think
I might be butchering that, but I think it's the Takumi, which is like Japanese for like ultra talented craftsmen. The hardware says ARP.
Whoa.
So, yeah, we got one here, boys. We got one. Yeah, stock means stock crank for sure. It looks that way, right? Mm-hmm. Right up on ARP 2000. No denying that one, huh? Yeah, we're working with a much smaller hole here. I don't want to take off this whole upper oil pan assembly, so we're trying to kind of like navigate down inside this one and see what we need to see.
JE, right there.
It's definitely JE. Now for the rods. So that is the side of the rod there. I know it's really tough to see. That might be a better angle. It has a little bit of surface rust on it, but more importantly, there is no actual brand name on any of the 4 sides of this rod, which I wish there was, obviously, but basically any built GTR engine is going to be good for bare minimum 1,000 horsepower, and that's going to make us a real fun car. And you know the question here, the same question as it always is, what are we putting it in?
Old Tacoma.
Has that been your answer for everything? For every swap? I'm pretty sure that's every swap.
that's not.
Let's do an old Tacoma.
Guys, I like them.
1972 Datsun 510 Triple S.
So we're going with like the purest vibes. I know it's been done before, but I've always wanted to do one of these in a 240Z, like a Datsun. Ooh. That would be so cool. Make it like a modern, nice driver with a manual transmission. This was not some huge money-making venture, but more so we were able to just acquire a lot of parts that'll help us in the future for a lot cheaper than we would have been able to otherwise. There's also a few things still left on the engine, like this front differential. If we throw this as something and choose to make it rear-wheel drive, we're not gonna need that, and somewhere down the line, that'll be another $1,000 for us. But you can look at this a couple different ways, right? One, we paid $10,000 for a Shep Stage 2.5 transmission, a built GTR engine, a chassis, a bunch of different parts for our build down there, including those wheels, which we could probably go talk in front of that one, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a cooler looking car. Or you can look at it as, what if we sell that transmission? In that case, we got a legitimately free built GTR engine and free parts for this car down here. Here she is. It's a very familiar color, right? We decided to just make a solar orange GTR. It's a factory Nissan color. It works. I don't want to go over it too in depth. I don't want to spoil anything because this video is going to come out as soon as we get that engine back into it and get it fired up for the first time. But man, this is one of those times that the second I saw this thing after it got painted, the second I walked in that body shop, I knew we knocked it out of the park. And these forge lines.
Bronze wheels as well.
So freaking good. Like this, if I could have spec'd wheels brand new, they'd have probably looked a lot like this. So
100%.
Killer deal in this car. Now, there is one thing we just learned about these wheels that is not good. And I don't mean to end on a downer here by any means, because this has all been great. Even if these things were trash, this would still have been a phenomenal deal. But I reached out to our local wheel repair shop to have these lips fixed up, and they told me they can't. Said we got to replace them. On a normal wheel, that's not really that big of a gouge. It's a little bent. You can weld that up, coat it this color, and everything would be fine. But these are a lip style that I've never personally seen before. This is apparently what they call a rolled lip. I can actually fit a pick under it. There's a piece of dirt or something under it right there. This entire lip is hollow, meaning it's not able to be fixed. You got to replace the whole thing. Now, I did talk to the guys at Forge Line. We're actually in the process of having them build a set of wheels for Double Wide once she's back from the paint shop, and they are going to be able to replace it. Everything's going to be fine. It's just going to be a little more expensive than I was originally hoping for. Now, to set realistic expectations about this one, really don't know what happens to it as far as what drivetrain ultimately ends up in it or anything. At this point, we have a wall full of other projects we need to get through, but this one, we'll stash it away. We'll pull it out when the time's right one day.
Sounds like a
About
plan.
covers it, right? Send them off. Spin a minute.
Adios.
There we go. Fully synthetic. What did I just say?
I think you missed.
Hold on the crib, my shoulder.
Oh.